right, Jeff. So you said we're going to need to bundle up.
That's right.
It's cold out there.
Bundle up and bundle up more, and lots and lots of layers. It's going to be a cold one. The next few days we will not see freezing again until sometime probably midday-ish on Wednesday. 11 tonight, 28 tomorrow. We will pick up maybe a flurry or snow shower Tuesday. Winter storm, though, well to our south. That's about all we're going to muster out of it here. A little warmer by the weekend, maybe some rain by Sunday, Monday. Amber in tomorrow morning, 4:30 a.m. with the latest on the cold.
All right, thanks so much, Jeff. Trevor, thank you. WAAY 31 gives you 24/7 coverage. You can count on local news, breaking news, and severe weather. Don't go anywhere. LawCall is next.
This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Heath Brooks, standing in for Sharon Doviet. Hope she comes back next week. We're here today talking with another edition of Ask Us Anything tonight. That means we're going to be taking your calls on anything involving any kind of legal question you may have, whether that's a personal injury, whether that's a family law question, whether that's something involving a will or an estate. Call us, ask us anything. But one of the things we're really concerned with and is really important to us tonight is to talk about what's going on with TikTok and how does TikTok affect our First Amendment rights? Is it a First Amendment right? If TikTok is banned, does that violate some right that we as American citizens have? And I'm here tonight with my partner, Will League, who knows all things First Amendment.
Yeah.
And Will, give us a little bit about the First Amendment.
Man, we missed Sharon. That was fantastic, bud. That was
Yeah,
fantastic.
how
We
about
missed Sharon. We sure do. Sharon, we hope everything's good, and we're looking forward to having you back next week. So we're going to test the age of our audience tonight. We're talking about TikTok. My mom doesn't know what it is. I'm just kidding. Maybe she does. But First Amendment right. How does that, what does it matter? What's going on? It's just a dancing cat video app. What's the deal?
Big news now, though. I mean, 30-second clips, everybody knows about them. It's part of rolling through your day for some people.
That's
so,
right. My kids are all up in arms about it. And let's go back. Basically, First Amendment right, okay? So back in the day, we had the Constitution. We didn't have a Bill of Rights. The Federalists, Alexander Hamilton and crew, said, look, the federal government has limited rights. We don't need a Bill of Rights. The Anti-Federalists said, look, we need to outline the individual rights so we can at least make sure the government doesn't infringe upon these named rights. That's how the Bill of Rights got in the mix in 1791. One of those, First Amendment, free speech, freedom of press, assembly, and petition. And what's petition? If you got an issue, to ask the government to address it. Now, all those rights under the First Amendment are not absolute. You don't have a right to yell fire in a crowded theater. You don't have a right to assemble and then incite a riot. I think we've heard about that. So all those things are not absolute. Now, what's going on here is freedom of speech issue with, can I continue to post content and not have my First Amendment rights violated by the government? And so in this particular situation, TikTok, there was an executive order by President Trump back in 2020. They went ahead and did an investigation and found that data could potentially be uploaded to the Chinese government. Bipartisan Congress voted to ban TikTok. And when are you going to have both sides of the aisle come together for a security issue? They sued, TikTok sued, Supreme Court talked about it, and the judgment came out Friday. So they're not really talking about, is it okay to post the cat videos, the dance videos, but they're talking about data and not content. And the issue is, can the data be transmitted to the Chinese government if they ask? And then the next question is, if we have, if we're at odds with the Chinese government and we have, a crisis, they may be able to use our own personal data against us to sow discord. That's one issue. Or manipulate content to forward China's political views and somehow skew our U.S. personal data, opinions, and all those things. And that's why everybody's up in arms, my kids and everybody. It's an issue, so be brave. Give us a shout.
Yeah.
If you got TikTok, I know it's late, be brave. Give us a shout and let us know what you think. But Heath, The other side of that coin is it's a perceived threat. Now, personally, I don't want China having my stuff. I don't want them having my kids' stuff. I don't want to have them having 50 million Americans' personal data, because I am kind of afraid that if it goes down, they can shut our stuff down. That's one side of it. What's the other side?
That's a good point. I mean, you've got the one side is that, hey, is this going to be a situation where folks are going to be taking the U.S. citizens' data, stealing it illegally, providing it to the Chinese government, then the Chinese government is then in turn going to utilize that data to somehow manipulate us into believing their viewpoints, or just stealing the data to steal our money. And so that's on one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is that everyone's data is already out there. That our data is, we send our data to Facebook. We send our data to all sorts of different places that companies all over the world then in turn buy. So if somebody wanted our personal data, banning TikTok may not be the best way to reach that solution. And so anytime the Supreme Court is making a determination about whether a First Amendment is violated, they use a test, and they determine whether or not the law is an important goal, and whether that goal is met by the law. And so in this scenario, one of the crazy things about it, and this is one of the other side's arguments, is that there is no evidence that right now, and this is admitted, that the Chinese government has stolen any data, or that TikTok as a company that is owned by a Chinese citizen has provided any data to the Chinese government. So without having any sort of actual evidence that any of these violations have occurred, it is really something that the Supreme Court said this is the fear of something occurring, and that has not ever happened before in this kind of setting.
In the last 2-3 decades, they've mostly been erring towards First Amendment rights. And again, it's important to note that it's not content related. Now, again, you shouldn't be able to put out obscene material, insightful material, and things like that, but their decision was based mostly on data and what can be done with that data. And so, I'm not a security defense expert. We're in the Silicon Valley of the South. We got a lot of experts here in town. I hear on the news, just like all you guys, that China is in all our stuff. Espionage is they're stealing a lot of our technology, all that things. And by the way, we might be doing it to them. I hope we are.
It's a concern.
If that's the game,
we have callers on the phone. Henry, we got a call from Henry. Henry from Huntsville. What's your question, Henry? Henry, are you with us?
So Heath, if we get him, if the word is they're in, all of our technology, they're stealing it. I err on the side of Congress. Now, we had a study done. I think Biden ordered the study, and it came back. And then when Congress both came together and said, hey, this is too big of a risk, that's something that concerns me. If, I'm not behind the Wizard of Oz curtain, but the Congress got the report from, they got the report, and they all voted, not unanimous, but it was a bipartisan effort to go ahead and ban TikTok, which was ratified and supported by the Supreme Court. Now, let me ask you this. Now, we got 3 prongs of government. You've got the legislative branch that went ahead and issued a law. You've got the judicial branch that went ahead and enforced that law because it was brought to the Supreme Court by TikTok. And now we've got the executive branch, soon to be President Trump, who, by the way, initiated this ban back in 2020, saying he's going to save it. So you got 2 branches of government versus 1. How does that work out?
They all 3 got to work together like baking a cake. That's something that we're going to have to work through. And there's a lot of ideas out there. Maybe the thing that was forgotten was that there were 2 options. One is that TikTok is banned, or 2 is that TikTok could sell to an American company. And so now that may be an option. We do have a caller on the line, Emma from Huntsville. Emma, what is your question?
Hey, my question is, well, I'm someone who, I love TikTok. I like to watch, the little dance videos and the little funny videos that come on there. And honestly, even if my information is getting leaked, I don't really have any concern for that. And so my question is, I'd like to, get a little bit more information on, what you guys think the dangers are, or the potential dangers are of it when, I use it very casually and just for fun.
How old are you?
I am 25.
Okay. I mean, you applying for loans, getting credit, starting off your professional life, things like that?
Yeah.
And the big issue is with privacy and security, if your information is compromised, and again, it's a foreign government we're talking about, so they can use it for any reason. We talked about the most dangerous. If there's a crisis and they're sowing discord in our country, that's an issue. But personally to you, if your information gets out there, whatever's on your phone, every keystroke, every move of the mouse, they know what you're doing, where you're going, what your hobbies are, what your interests are. For example, there was a FTC, Federal Trade Commission study going on and basically blew the lid off. The 250 retailers in America are using these algorithms to track who you are, where you're from, what kind of shopping do you do? And let's say you're trying to buy a pair of boots. If you're in an affluent neighborhood, they're going to sell those boots at a higher price than if you're somewhere else. So basically, no kidding, the man is getting together and price fixing. Is it small? That's a fleecing of America is what's going on. Because if they're doing that, what's the downside?
Here's the thing. We're concerned not necessarily with the content. We're concerned with the way that data is being tracked, where you're going, what are you doing, what is your like, what is your dislike, how can this data be presented to you in a way that can manipulate you to the benefit of the Chinese government? That is the concern with the government, is that you're going to be provided information based upon your likes and dislikes, based upon your trends, based upon the things that you do in your everyday life that can impact you and can impact a larger group of people, more importantly, going into the future. So that's a concern, and also it's a concern with just, like Will said, the information that is on your phone. So that's an important question, Emma, that the government and then all of us are trying to deal with. They're telling us we need to take a break. So we will be right back answering more of your calls.
Nice. That was Bill. Nice.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call. Your rights, your calls, live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League & Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of Attorney Michael Timberlake, Attorney Will League, Attorney Heath Brooks, Attorney William Maservi. And hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening. We're here with LawCall tonight, answering your questions about anything you want to call us about. But we're specifically concerned tonight with TikTok and the ban on TikTok. And we have a pretty important email question that I want to put out there. This is from Bryson, and it gets to the heart of what can we do now. Since the Supreme Court already ruled on this question, does that mean that this will have to be resolved in a big trial? Or is it really just as easy as turning it back on with Donald Trump's permission, as they seem to have done earlier today? You know, that's a good question that Bryson brings up. Now that this is an issue resolved, the Congress and the President passed a law that went into effect that was sought by TikTok to be stopped, and the Supreme Court allowed the ban to move forward. So what do you think Donald Trump could do right now?
You know, we talked a little bit about earlier, you know, and again, so you've got Congress made it law. We got three branches of government. You got the Supreme Court that went ahead and enforced that law when it was tested under scrutiny in the court system, just like is legal to do. And then you've got basically administrative action by the executive branch saying, look, we're going to bring it back. Now, number one, I don't think the executive branch can do that because that's against the nature of the three-pronged system that we have. But again, the problem's going to be enforcement. The executive branch enforces those orders. So, you know, Heath, you know, again, you're not allowed to do it, but it's got to be enforced somehow, right?
You know, it's interesting that one of the things that was talked about was, so there were two options that TikTok had, like we were talking about earlier. One is that they could sell the company to an American-owned company. They could sell TikTok. It would no longer be owned by a Chinese-owned company. It would be owned by an American company and continue on as it had been before under new ownership.
Now, but let me ask you this. Trump suggested 50-50 ownership, U.S.-China. How does that work? How does that still keep our information out of China's hands?
See, I'm not quite sure that gets us there, because the requirement was that the TikTok had to be completely American-owned. I think what would have to happen was that Congress would have to rescind that law. In other words, they would have to pass a new law that would be ratified by President Trump, basically rolling back the previous law, and then a different deal would have to come forward. I think this is something that's going to be a lot more complicated in dealing with than just, hey, look, we can sell 50% of TikTok to an American company and walk on. I don't think that would be an option.
Right. You know, it's just such a crazy situation that we're debating losing the next war because we want our cat videos in our 30-second dance situation. And if our Congress has acted, our Supreme Court's acted, can we not, can the American Technology Group not put together another platform to where you can have your cat and dance videos? Again, that's a question that I have. I get it. There's algorithms that you got people who are making their living doing this, and they've generated all these followers. But again, if a national security interest is at stake, that should trump. What would our grandfathers and great-grandfathers say to this particular debate? And the power that big tech, we're talking about oligarchs, and that's what's going on is it's concerning. When social media came out, Congress passed a law, Section 230, giving them not absolute immunity, but pretty strong immunity, saying, look, they cannot be liable or held civilly liable for content that they put on their site that's created by another user, even though they're pushing it out. There's an exception if they publish and create that particular content. The question that Heath and I have is the young people out there. There's studies out that says there's more and more depression, FOMO, and all that with young people and young minds being on their phones and tablets 24/7 or a lot of the time. And if they know that it's targeting children, if they know that there's body images going on with young females and even young males, there's depression, and if they're continuing to push out that content, I personally feel the law giving them that type of immunity is overreaching, and the consumer protection and the father in me want to say, look, they have to be responsible if they know children are on their platform and are being harmed. And Heath, I can't stand that they have that immunity. And I get it, we want to foster technology, but not at the expense of mental health of our youth.
Yeah, it's a good point, and it's a consideration that we got with all social media. We got callers on the line. William from Florence. William, what's your question?
Well, I had a question. I've been in an apartment here for three years, and the other day I got a notice that my rent's going up $260 from what I'm paying now. Can these owners charge anything they want to, whenever they want to?
Well, you know, William, here's the deal. When you own basic law in Alabama, we have the Alabama landlord-tenant law that benefits a landlord and does not benefit the tenant most of the time. If you're under a 30-day month-to-month contract with your lease, then yes, your landlord can change your rent, you know, whenever they really want to, with giving you the appropriate 30-day notice. If you're in a year lease, your landlord can change your rent every year, giving you the appropriate notice. It's really going to be dependent upon what your contract says, and in that regard, what type of lease that you're in. But unfortunately, yes, a landlord can charge more for their rent as time goes on, as long as that contract allows for that, or if the contract doesn't speak to that.
Because at the end of each contract, you go month to month, and at that time they can raise it. And a lot of times, if it goes month to month, there's a provision in the contract that allows X amount over the last month on the contract, and then month to month starts a new term. If there is no provision, they can come. Now, there is some resident rights. There's a new law came out, I want to say recently, probably about 5-7 years ago, that give tenants more rights. You may want to look at that, William, and see if that gives you, any relief.
Yeah. You know, we got an important text message question in. What if Facebook was owned by a Chinese company? Colton asked, would the federal government be allowed to ban Facebook? And that's one of the things we're talking about. So TikTok was banned because the federal government and the Supreme Court agreed that the danger involved with a Chinese company potentially providing information to the Chinese government that had been collected from U.S. citizens resulted in the okay violation of your First Amendment right, freedom of speech. That type of inquiry, that type of analysis would have to be provided by Facebook. Now, Facebook is owned by an American company, so presumably the way that the Supreme Court would look at a potential ban on Facebook may be different. But I still believe that there is some room potentially, if there's a situation where Facebook is taking information, that the Supreme Court could ban Facebook.
Yeah,
right?
It was owned by a Chinese company, and again, the precedent's been set. They've weakened the First Amendment, so all the First Amendments out there, it's been a bit weakened, but it's a balancing act with the national security interest of our data. And under that particular question, I feel like the Supreme Court would ban Facebook or any other company that was owned by a foreign national country. And so that's, it's an issue. If our information is getting out there, it puts us at risk. I just, if you're asking me, I don't think the cat videos are worth it.
Here's the thing, though, and this is where the other side gets kind of concerned about this. Where you start looking at what right does the federal government have to take away your ability to communicate? Yeah, we got two things here. One is that TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, all of these social media platforms are just that, they're platforms. They are privately owned organizations that allow individuals to provide content, speech, videos, whatnot. When the Supreme Court says that it is okay to ban platforms, they are not saying it is okay to ban speech. It is okay to ban the platforms. The bigger question as we go down the line is going to be, how far can the Supreme Court go with banning these actual platforms, even though they're not banning speech? Because realistically, we as Americans, for the most part, probably 3/4 of it, actively use or are involved with a social media platform. That's how we communicate.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely in our commerce, woven in our fabric, and it's an interesting question going forward, and it's not going to get better. It's going to get more and more complicated as more of our lives turn online. I mean, you can't go to a concert with a real ticket anymore. You got to go through the man and buy a ticket. If you want to transfer a ticket, that's an issue. Heath, we got a text question.
Yep.
You have to insure your house for the amount the insurance company wants you to.
Not necessarily.
I don't think you do.
But if you don't, and your house gets destroyed, then you can be on the hook for the difference. So a lot of times when the insurance company says you need this much money, your house gets destroyed, they may not cover the full value of the house. So, if that's a situation, you may want to listen to your insurance company. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back answering more of your calls.
All right. If I did get your answers to your questions tonight, give us a buzz. Will League and Heath Brooks, Timberlake League and Brooks, Huntsville, 536-0770. You can get on our blog and check out our website, law-injury.com. Heath, the question, our tech guy back here was telling us, why can't another platform take the place of TikTok?
One of the big things is you need users. You need the infrastructure, and so one of the things that when you're building a platform and you're looking at an opportunity to be able to take over for TikTok, we see this with Instagram, by the way. Instagram is moving resources around to try to get the algorithms that TikTok has to drive more of those TikTok users into Instagram, which begs the question, how are they going to get all these millions and millions and millions, I believe 170 million users on
Right.
TikTok. How are they going to get all these users over to Instagram in this vacuum, particularly when TikTok's down 1 minute, now it's back up, now it's down another minute. People rely upon TikTok for their livelihood in some cases.
Right.
So, can you start a new platform? Yeah, you need the infrastructure, you need the users. That's going to require marketing. You got to have a lot of marketing to get people to move towards your new product.
And one part, the incentive. So let's say you've got, 150,000 influencers that are bringing more people to your site. Sites are paying them for being influencers. So that's the third thing you need to bake that cake. You need infrastructure, users, and incentive for people to come onto your site and stay. And, there's a void. They may be gone, so who's going to fill that void? Maybe somebody from the great state of Alabama.
The marketing is so expensive too. The marketing to get out there and get in front of people, it's very expensive. But anyway, well, we hope that everybody can move forward with their social media lives and enjoy their social media platforms in the future. We'll just have to see what happens.
Stay safe, stay warm, and good luck on you TikTok users.